Okay, so next we're going to go through and do the work off the hourly chart, right? So this is pretty straightforward. Let's start with high, and then I'll merge the two charts later on. Right click, target is low. And then what I want to note is, as I'm going through and I'm doing this, bring this in, right? And I'm interested in a couple of things here that I'll go through. Give me just one sec. Okay, so the first thing I want to notice that I want to notice when I'm going through this chart is this area can get fully re-auctioned, right? So I want to watch out between 24,404 and 24,700. You need to be aware of this. If I mark up these charts like nuts, right? So the first thing I would do is I'd put in support resistance, right? So, but it's hard to nail support and resistance when you have such wide bars, right? A lot of this relies on getting kind of pinpoint accuracy. So you're going to look at where you prior rejected and supported from. Like, that's all there is to it. So like there, but that's going to cover 50 points, right? And it may not be perfect. What I'm looking at here is this down and this up. Quite simple, right? That cradle right there is what I'm looking at for rejection. So I might want to fine tune it a little bit. And then what I notice is, see these points of control between here and here? I really want to do it like this. So if I was going to fine tune these even more, right, I would go through and I would do it like this. Here's the lower pointing controls. Here's the lower pointing controls. So I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to do this structure. And I'm going to do this structure here. That's kind of how I would run that out. And then I would tighten it up on the bottom. I know the volume's closer to there and there. And that's kind of how I would make those two levels, right? And the other thing I would note is, see all these points of control over here, and then these points of control over here. So I know that there was responsive buyers down here. Like I would have expected underneath this to get responsive buyers, and I know all the volume is clustered right in here. So I know, right, I'm going to come in here and make a volume area, and I'm going to come in here. And it's going to end up all being one thing. Like that whole area ends up being a structure, because that's where all the volume is, right? And I know that we reject off of volume. You can see they pushed down, they pushed up. You can see when we pushed into this level right over here, we rejected the first time. And it becomes when the markets break loose like this, you have to be a little bit more willing to adjust. Like for example, clearly structure here, but also structure here. All within the context of a poorly auctioned bar, right? So I want you to remember this. When you come over here and goes, oh, well, Simon said put a zone like here and here like this. Okay, I did, but this supersedes everything in here, meaning this long bar. Does that make sense to everyone? So the answer is, and I'm always hesitant to put a bar in here like this. So the way you do that is I'm going to make these beyond pink. I'm going to make them white. Okay, that means they're just there for your knowledge base. They're not there to be traded against, right? Why? Because they're within this. They're worse than purple. Like I won't even automatically consider them, right? They're just areas of interest for me. They're areas of interest that I can watch the structure, right? And if I sound like, hey, how do you know? Well, You don't. It's 1,000 points of range. It's a lot. We're going to need some repair done in that area, right? So when you look at that, there's two critical areas in here for me too that I would lay out, and that would be this very specific level would be very important. So I'm going to make that, I don't know what color to make that. That's going to be white and dashed. Like that. Very important. And then same thing with this. And I'm going to go as far as say you got to get above 24,407 to 24,462. You got to get above 24,07 to go higher. And I would say 24,462. And the other one that's really important is that one where we dropped off from. Well, how they're going to make me drag this all around. Now we go back and look to the left. Okay, so when I look to the left, this becomes important here. Just regular white line. Okay, so all of these become important all the way down. Every one of those red lines right there. Oh, you know what? This is my RTH. I don't even know where the 24-hour is on this. So I'm going to have to do another chart with the 24-hour and merge all this together. But that's all right. I'll do that later today. Now, where do I go with this? Let's see. No, I turned it over. That. Trying to think if there's anything else I need to mark off. But I think that's it from this chart. this. Trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing here. This. So that would be it for this chart, right? And then I take one more piece. Let's see, I'm going to go over here. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Hold on a second. And then there's actually a pretty critical level here on this first hour low I'd pay attention to, is if we don't break that at 24,800, but man, over 24,800 I'd be particularly cautious on all of these. That's why these are going to be gray. Like, this makes sense right here. See, like, I just don't want to draw them all over the place. So I'll put a little one here. Again, that's going to be gray or white on the chart off the RTH. And then those are the levels that I would look at down below, all the way down there. Like, and again, I'll have these published so you can just copy them over, guys. And then, so I need to rename this. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the 24 hours, and I'm going to do the same thing, meaning the 24-hour chart. And if it seems like it's redundant, right? If it seems like it's redundant, there's a reason for that. Okay, and the reason is, I need to see something here. The reason is I want to be damn sure I can rely on those levels. Again, these are secondary to what the actual price action is showing me. Hold on 1 second. Okay, this will take a second to download. I'm going to pause this. Okay, now I have the same level on a 24-hour basis, right? And I can see if I go back and look to the left. So first of all, I want to see what's underneath. Oh, this is NQ, ES. Wow, I screwed that up. Hold on a second here. Rename. Which means I have an NQ in here somewhere. And there it is. And that is my 24-hour. Okay, so now I'm going to get underneath here. And so I'm going to do the same thing here. See this chart settings. I'm going to remove all the coloring. Right, and I do that by chart drawings. And I'll remove all this. And then I'll come back over. And go to the end. And now I'll do the same deal, except I want to make sure I have the 24-hour lows marked off. So the only thing I'm going to change on those reds is that the orange is below the red, right? So in most cases it won't be because of the way we traded, but this is what I want to know from. And this was my RTH low. Same place. And I know I already have that marked off, so this is just for my visual. And I want to go see, I'm going to do that. Okay, that way I can see what's off to the left. Right, so first thing is I want to get underneath that bar. I know I already have this swing low marked off from the 18th down at 24,200, and I can see where I had my Globex lows, and if my Globex lows are below my prior day lows, then I want to mark them off on those swings. Like, I want to make sure I had this marked off, right? I want to make sure that I have this swing marked off. Make sure I have this swing marked off. And then what I'll do is once I merge them all together, if something seems duplicated, I'll either delete it or I'll look for where it all aligns. See this? I want this marked off, and this marked off, and then I know this is my Globex low right in there, right? But I don't necessarily want that marked off because it wasn't the bottom of the swing, right? Okay, so prior day's low, I want this marked off. I want that marked off. See, that wouldn't have got marked off on the other chart. And then I know I want finally that part marked off. Okay, so within that structure, I can see on a 24-hour basis that I had support right here in this 23,747. I want to make sure that I have this area marked off. I know I had responsive buying in this area. I want to make sure I have that marked off. This area becomes important right here. Marked off. All of that becomes important. So see how it just becomes huge areas in there because of the range that we have. And we'll have to turn to like this clearly. Like you want all of that marked off, right? They're just big wide areas. But what happens is you end up with black areas that you don't want to trade in. See that? Like where there's large swaths of location that you're like, okay, I definitely don't want to trade in here. Just underneath here, I'd want that marked off. I'd want that marked off. I'd want this marked off. I'd want this marked off. Okay. I'm looking for where they're being responsive in multiple ways, and I'd want this and this marked off, right? I think that gets us to where we are now, to the end. And you can see your support levels really begin. So I would have had, and I would still say, I would have had this marked off as well. And I'd have this marked off. And this. Okay, all of that's going to end up in poorly auctioned areas. Same with this. See, and we just cut through all of that. So those will be old levels within that poorly auctioned area. So this too. Had a hard time in there. This is really important, this one right here. That's going to be a long line. That 25,000 right there, that's going to be a big old battle right there at that 25,000. And then also this is going to be important too. You can see they rejected multiple times in this level. This 24,950 to 24,900. I hate to pit such big areas, but that's what the chart is telling me, right? Again, an area right in here. $24,800 to $24,850. So we'll just have to be adaptive as we get into those areas. Again, what I'm relying on these charts, what I am relying on these charts is what I'm relying on is the blue squares and white squares. For shorts, the white squares above. For the longs, the blue squares below. Why? It'll slow down my thinking. I don't want to overtrade, and I want to get the best trades, and those are where the best trades are going to be. Okay? So now when we merge it all together, okay, so that's what this thing looks like all the way down, right? And I may have missed some areas, and I'll have to go back through this afternoon and re-examine. It's a lot of time. Like if you look, we're going back through a bunch of days, right? And remember, this is only through September, right? We go further back, there's more back to the left. We've gone straight up, right? I can tell you that 23,267 is important. And it is possible that we trade lower than that. Like this is only 1,200 points down, but I'll just have to do the work if and when we get there. That's just all there is to it. I hope not, but we could have to do that, right? So now I'm going to take my 24 ticks. So this is chart number 8. This is how it all comes together. Here's my 24 tick. 40 tick, 40 tick. Where's my 24 tick? There's my 24 tick. Okay. And I want to draw from this chart. So chart number 8, chart number 5, and chart number 9. So 8, 9, and 5, right? So I come to this chart and I go chart settings, and I go charts. I just got to add 9, 9. Okay, and that's what it looks like when you put all the pieces together, right? So if you spread that out, right? So now what I'll do, and I'll do it later today. So this is going to be version 1, right? So see how I have just too much stuff going on, and you can't tell when you look at that chart. You're like, wow, Simon, that you have wide swaths. But what this tells me is there's big fat swaths where I want to do nothing. And importantly, so those are important to me, right? Those areas. The green areas are where there's single prints, right? White levels are where there was prior day's lows or swing lows, right? The purple levels are where there's little single print levels. They all tell me something in here, right? And as you'll see, as we get lower, they get further and further and further apart. So the yellow are anomalies, right? So now I have to go through and look at that chart and go, what do I want to add or what do I want to remove from that chart? So the white levels are prior day's lows or swing lows. They're important levels, right? The first thing I'd want to remove out of there are the anomalies on the profile, because so if I need to reduce the noise, right? So I take my profile chart, right, which was this. Okay, so that's chart number 5. And I want to clean this up a little bit, right? So I have 2 choices on there. I can get rid of my anomalies and just focus on my single prints, right? Which is probably what I'll choose to do. Why? I'm getting too much information on here, right? So what I will do in there, I have to think this through carefully, right? Because they're both valid areas, but I know what I want to remove. This is the hard part. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take off the anomalies off of here because I can reference them in real time. So I can just take these off. There's the point of control. Now I can go back to this and I can go get rid of this, 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 this. It's not that they're not valid levels. It's that I can have less information going, and still be, oh, naked volume point of control. I wanted to keep that. So that's important. Nope, I wanted to keep that. Okay, I'll replace it with this. Really, this needs to be it's too far apart. That stays, and then there's some more down there. So now when I go back to this 24 tick chart, there, it's more cleaned up. And I have fewer levels on there. I still don't like this, and I've spent about as much mental energy as I can on this. And so I'm going to go back and think it through later today. And this is what I have for now. I've accidentally erased the value area high. So I'll go back and put it on my profile chart. Oh no, it's there. 416 to 014. It's just so far up here. There's the other side of it, right? And I know, remember the most important thing in between here is between 25014 and 24407. That's all fair value in there. All of that stuff is fair value. And so you've got to remember that. I really hate this chart right now. I don't like the way that it's looking. So what I'm going to do is pause here and go back and clean it up some more later today. Yeah, I'm just going to clean it back up later today and see where we're at. And then, so I'll be keen off of two things. Are we above or below the 200 period moving average? Are we above or below VWAP? And then I'll go with support resistance areas from there and green squares, because otherwise it's too much information for us to process. Okay, I'll talk to you in a little bit, guys. Have a great day. This will be updated again this evening once I have a little bit more clarity.